How's it going, guys? Welcome back. We are back once again, day 2 of Worlds. So it is October 2nd, 2015. Really great games today as well. We had 6 more games for group stage. So we're gonna once again go over them a couple minutes per game to go ahead and talk about the action that corresponded today. So the morning started off with ktrolster versus TSM. The game was actually pretty close early on. The lanes matched up pretty well, but eventually everyone for TSM started to fall behind, other than Bjergsen, of course, but pretty much the entire rest of the team started to fall behind, especially Dyrus onto Someday. Someday got Darius, which is a huge deal, and Dyrus got Olaf, which is normally not that bad of a matchup, but it's a champion that Someday is extremely comfortable on. He's sort of the big dog up there in top lane right now, and that's such an important role. Wild Turtle didn't play that well. He had Vayne. Lustboy had Braum, which is a really strong power pick, as well as Santorin, who had Elise. But they just did not perform. KT did a really good job of protecting Arrow, who had Kog'Maw. They had Rek'Sai, Azir, and Alistar, and all 3 of those champions were great at protecting Arrow. Nagne had some weird deaths to Bjergsen in lane, and so maybe that's showing some weakness from Nagne, but the rest of his team is so strong and played so well throughout the entire game, it didn't really matter. Bjergsen was playing LeBlanc, and so maybe that's the reason why Azir has a little bit of an issue with the movement of LeBlanc and sort of how she can kind of zip and zap around all over the place. But yeah, KT sort of just snowballed a lead in their other 4 lanes, and then just kind of grouped together and began to push, and Bjergsen couldn't solo carry himself. So pretty standard game there. I figured KT would win that. Again, I don't see TSM winning a game in this group. This group is extremely difficult. And so yeah, TSM, I just did not see them winning a game, and so this is a very good early indication of what I thought it was, where it's just Bjergsen trying to solo carry his team. I don't think his team is up to the rest of the competition in their respective roles. Especially in this group, I think all of their roles except for Bjergsen are pretty much at the bottom tier, are the 4th place team here. So yeah, pretty standard thing there. LGD versus Origin. I'm gonna call that the game of the day by far. Everything in that game was extremely close. All the lanes were really close. There were a lot of tense moments, a lot of really good fights, swings of momentum back and forth, where someone would get, go 3 for 0 or 2 for 0 and get advantages in all these kind of different places, and you would think, okay, the game is pretty much over, and the game would just swing back the other way, and there's great sort of just momentum shifts all over that game. Again, very close. Eventually Origin pulled a lead with an Xpeke Shockwave, an Orianna Shockwave, and then they were able to go ahead and get Baron off of that, and the game sort of tipped into Origin's favor for the most of the back half of that game. Then the way the game ended, though, was pretty interesting, because LGD tried to go for Baron about 40-45 minutes in, and Origen was able to hold them off 4v5, not fully commit, but just kind of hold them off at Baron, and then Soaz went ahead and backdoored the classic Fnatic backdoor, the base, and yeah, they were able to go ahead and do that, which is just fantastic, very classic kind of, considering the basis of this team was Soaz and Xpeke. It's kind of funny to go ahead and see them do that, which is fun. But yeah, everyone played really well. I would say TBQ played pretty poorly overall, but for the most part, like his scoreline might have been bad, and he might not have performed up to the level we're used to seeing him play. But he was able to set up a lot of things for his team. The rest of LGD played really well. All of Origin played really well. Just a really fun game to watch. A lot of back and forth again, as I said. Highly recommend going and watching that game. Next, after that, we had Bangkok Titans against SKT. It's a real trolly game. G4, the mid laner and sort of the star carry for Titans, blind picked actually Aurelia mid, and so Faker counterpicked by picking Olaf mid, and so it's just very like you could tell both teams were having a lot of fun with it, and neither of them were being overly careful. It wasn't like the Titans versus EDG game where EDG really like legitly tried to play and just kind of stomped. It was more of a fun kind of a game, and I would highly recommend watching that game because the most fun thing about that game was they had Deficio casting it, and so Doa and Freak together, the combinations, the puns, synchronizations, so to speak, were fantastic. It's a fun game to watch and a fun game to listen to them cast. But yeah, not too much to say about that game other than it's not really going to factor too much in the tournament overall. I'm actually surprised SKT didn't start Easy Hoon there. That would have been a great chance to get him some Worlds experience on that stage, or at least some practice in. But who knows? Maybe we'll see him a little bit later on. I'll talk a little bit about it later on. Next, we had H2K against EDG. EDG was in control most of the game. H2K won a fight, like a really big fight, like a 3-0 or 4-0 if I remember correctly, towards the mid game. But EDG won a fight directly after that, and it was, kind of just shut down the momentum after that. Really easy win, nothing too major to talk about. The only thing major to talk about in that game was the fact that like Lulix is pretty much proving that he's the worst jungler there at Worlds. He was 0-8, had 0 impact of the game. Really, I have no idea, how H2K was able to get to Worlds with as poor a jungler as Lulix. I was actually pretty surprised. And I know that's like bashing Lulix has been the big kind of joke going into Worlds. Like that and Stake have been kind of the punching bags going into Worlds. But man, is he really proving it. While Stake is proving that he's not a joke, Lulix is proving everyone correct here. And the funny thing is everyone else played pretty well. I mean, Kasing's score was, I think it was 1-6-0. It was a bad score as well, but to be fair, he was doing a lot more than Lulix was. To be completely fair to Lulix, he was playing against Clearlove, who's really playing well the 2 games that we've seen him so far. But again, we've seen him against Bangkok Titans and now H2K, so I'll have to wait till tomorrow to really see what happens. Again, I can talk about that now. So tomorrow morning for day 3, the first game of day 3 is SKT versus Edward Gaming, and so that's the sort of first clash of the Titans that we're getting at Worlds here. 2 teams that are pretty much the favorites to win Worlds, and so we're finally going to see them square off for the first time since MSI, which is why I think maybe that's why they didn't put Easy Hoon in, maybe because they just want Faker to have some consistency, have some warm up kind of practice with the team and going into that game. And Edward Gaming, that's going to be the test that we see for Clearlove and the rest of the team to see how good they really are, and see the differences of the teams and how they've went since MSI, and since that's the last time we've seen them play each other. And I think they still had Koro in the top lane back then as well, or not Koro. They didn't have Amazing J in the top lane back at MSI, so it'll be interesting to see that dynamic against Marin. And again, like we've talked about in the preview video, if you go watch that one, Edward Gaming and SKT are in 2 completely different places than they were going into MSI. SKT was coming off of an okay year, and then they hit their meta right at the end during the playoffs, and then snowballed through the end of the playoffs and won the championship over KOO. While Edward Gaming was dominating in Korea or China the entire season, and then coming into MSI really, really hot. Now coming into Worlds, it's kind of flipped around, where SKT was the team that was stomping all over Korea and came in really hot, and Edward Gaming came in losing and playing a little bit slower against LGD, and then looking really strong during the playoffs, but not as strong, or during the promotions to get into Worlds, but not looking as strong as they did in the spring. And so it's these 2 dynamics that I'm really interested to see how coming into Worlds that dynamic has changed since MSI. That's a completely different discussion now. We'll just move on to the next game. Next game is going to be Flash Wolves versus KOO Tigers. This was an interesting game. This is by far the surprise of the day. This is the only game that I picked wrong today, uh, or the only game that kind of messed up my winning record here. But it was Flash Rolls versus Coup again. The lanes started out really standard. There was an invade, but I mean, the lanes pretty much evened out. We had standard lanes. Coup gave up a lead like they usually do in the early game, nothing major. Flash Wolves were able to outlane them. Coup started to make a comeback and take control in the mid game, made a lot of great decisions. A lot of once they started grouping, you can tell that's really where Coup's strength is. But I mean, they lost the fight, lost Baron in the mid game as well, and then Flash Wolves just snowballed so hard off of that. And the funny thing is Coup Tigers didn't play out the game poorly. They did all they could and just couldn't overcome the lead they had lost with the early Baron. And yeah, Flash Wolves just looked really good closing out that game. Again, it wasn't bad decision making from Coup Tigers. It was just the lead and the snowball that Flash Wolves had that just kind of propelled them through, and the Gangplank really helped as well. They had the mid Gangplank from Maple that really helped that team. And then the last game was Counterlogic Gaming against Pain Gaming. That game had another invade. CLG snowballed really hard off of an invade, and then they got two really easy double kill or an easy double kill down in bot lane for Rush Hour, and so they just snowballed off of that. We had a Tristana that Double Lith was playing, of course, a very late game centric champion, and then they also got Lulu and Braum. Lulu for the second time this tournament. Teams have got to stop giving them Lulu. Paul Belter's a really good Lulu player, and it supports their playstyle of playing around Double Lift or Zion, where they can just kind of buff up and protect one person and then have them run around and rain terror all over a team. Paul Belter probably gets the least amount of resources of any mid laner here at Worlds. I think I can confidently say that because their carries are Zion, Spartan, and Double Lift. Like, by far, that's their game plan. But yeah. It wasn't like it was a bad game from Pain. They just made a lot of bad decisions early on in the game, and then they had to risk a lot to come back into the game. So I don't feel like it was bad decision making on their part. I just think they were in a lose-lose situation where they had to just kind of go for broke and hope it worked, and it didn't work. But yeah, it was a pretty easy game for CLG. A really good showing for them. But again, I think it's more of a showing of how good CLG is than it is for how for Pain being a weak team or anything like that. I think Pain's still really strong. I think it was just a couple of early game decision making that kind of cursed them in that way. So yeah, guys, we have tomorrow's matchups. We'll bring another video to you, and have a good day. Enjoy the rest of tomorrow.